We're going to start off today, right now, with Melinda Tankard Reist. I hope I've pronounced your surname correctly. Who is the movement director of the wonderfully named Collective Shout, which is based in New South Wales, Australia. And Melinda is a globally esteemed author, speaker, media commentator, and advocate for young people. She co-founded the grassroots campaigning movement known as Collective Shout, which has the objective of trying to achieve a world free of sexploitation. Melinda is best known for her work addressing sexualization, the harms of pornography and violence, and violence against women. And she's authored 7 books and is named in the world who's who of women. So Melinda, over to you. Great to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you and my colleagues, and I thank you for this wonderful opportunity you've given us to address your summit. Thank you for your support. We've had the support of many age verification providers that are with you there in the UK, and so we want to thank you for that significant support. Obviously, we haven't achieved our goals yet, and we've been fighting for a long time for a system of age verification in Australia. I want to share with you today the evidence we've gathered from parents, evidence from students, the research that's been done in Australia, and then look at our campaign here, our lobbying efforts, our advocacy to try to secure some form of protection for children. This is a global, never before seen experiment on the healthy sexual development of our children. I've been working in this space for many years, and the stories from young people, from parents, are getting worse. And it's a diabolical situation, and we'll keep fighting until we achieve some type of protection here for our children. So I want to say a little bit about the history of Collective Shout. We're nearly 15 years old, and we were born as a result of my 3rd book, Getting Real, Challenging the Sexualization of Girls. It was a collection of essays by authorities on the harms of sexualizing children, forcing them to grow up too soon. And one of the contributors to this book wrote to me after it came out and said, "This book is a collective shout against the pornification of culture." And I love that phrase so much. I thought I need an excuse just to use those words. And so I co-founded this movement with some like-minded women. And we really punch above our weight. We're a small team. We run campaigns in Australia and internationally. This is our team, Coralie, who's actually on the call right now as well. Coralie is based in Melbourne. We have Lynn Kennedy in Perth, Caitlin Roper in Perth, and Renee Chopping on the Sunshine Coast. That's our little team, really leading the efforts for age verification here in Australia. We've had multiple victories, including against multi-million-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar corporations. And one of our big wins a couple of years ago was getting child sex abuse dolls off one of the biggest global shopping platforms in the world, Alibaba. These are replica children, lifelike, anatomically correct, custom designed to look like real children. We've got 3 porn magazines removed here in Australia. People, Picture, and Zoo. Picture and People were in Australia for 80 years. It just took 7 weeks on Twitter, naming the executives of Bauer Media Group alongside images from those magazines that were in corner stores, petrol stations, 7-Eleven. We got rid of those in a very short space of time. You can find our victories on our website if you would like some good news. When I first started writing on this issue over a decade ago, my colleagues and I, we were kind of outliers, and in some ways we were mocked and derided for what we were saying about where pornography would take us, and especially in pornography's grooming of our young people. And now we have our peak bodies saying the same thing. Years later, Our Watch produced a report called Pornography, Young People and Preventing Violence Against Women, and it said studies have highlighted the high frequency of specific violent behaviors largely directed at women, including gagging, verbally abusive language, and the more generally prevalent portrayal of male dominance and female submission. Research suggests greater porn use is associated with less progressive attitudes about gender roles, a belief that women are sex objects, and rape myth acceptance. It quoted young people expressing their concerns that porn was creating uncertainty and demands around sexual relationships from male peers and partners, that young men may pressure girls to perform unwanted, degrading, painful, or violating sexual acts. A 17-year-old female said, "I'm worried about the effect porn has on boys my age, the expectations they will place on me and other women as a result of viewing porn. Pornography as a driver of attitudes that lead to violence against women was cited in our national plan to end violence against women and children." So this is an Australian state and federal government report. And this report says, with pornography now overwhelmingly consumed online and via mobile devices, it is both prevalent and pervasive, perpetuating sexist, misogynistic, and degrading views about women. This is a serious concern in addressing the drivers of violence against women and children. We have evidence now from our frontline service providers. Di McLeod, director of the Gold Coast Centre Against Sexual Violence, wrote to me and said, "The past few years, we have had a huge increase in intimate partner rape of women 14 to 80 plus. The biggest common denominator is consumption of porn by the offender. Offenders not able to differentiate between fantasy and reality, believing women are up for it 24/7, ascribing to the myth that no means yes and yes means anal, oblivious to injuries caused and never ever considering consent. We have had a huge increase in deprivation of liberty, physical injuries, torture, drugging, filming, and sharing footage without consent." The Australian Childhood Foundation says we're now seeing 6, 7, and 8-year-olds involved in coercive, manipulative sexual behaviours because there's confusion around what healthy sexuality really means. Our Australian Federal Police has reported that children as young as 5 years of age are filming themselves naked and posting it online. Front page of our Weekend Australian, early sexualization of kids blamed for a rise in students' attacks. And of course, you would be seeing this in your own countries. This is a global phenomenon, and the easy access to online porn is identified as leading to this significant jump in student-on-student sexual assaults. The grooming predatory effects of pornography are playing out in our schools every day. This is from the Daily Telegraph. Southwest Sydney schools report incidences of assault, indecent assault on campus, and violent porn access from the age of 10 was identified as a factor in a 44% increase in indecent assaults at school. Boys are sharing the most vile content with each other in encrypted chat groups. One chat group started by a group of Year 9 boys at one of our most elite schools in this country, they were sharing content that was so degraded and depraved that the crime writer at the Daily Telegraph, 30 years reporting the worst crimes in this country, said the content the boys were sharing was the worst he had ever seen, and most of it he couldn't even report on. It could not be published. Our Australian Secondary Students in Sexual Health Survey has found that the average age at which young people first experience unwanted sex is 14.9 years. That's the average, not even the first. Our latest sexual assault data in Australia has found that almost 61% of survivors were under the age of 18 when the sexual assault occurred. This is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Offenders with a principal offence of sexual assault by age and sex. If you have a look at the 15 to 19-year-old age group, you will see the 15 to 19 cohort there, the largest cohort of sex offenders in Australia. This has not been seen before. And again, this is a global phenomenon. New research that came out in January of this year found that adolescent males were now the most common perpetrator of sexual assaults against children. And this has been reported in the UK as well, and Wales. Police data shows 52% of alleged offenders in England and Wales are minors. Again, this is the fruit of porn consumption, boys consuming extremely violent porn depicting rape and sadism, incest, extreme degradation and brutality against women. We should not be surprised at the rising rates of violence against women when this is how we are teaching boys about sexuality. What are parents saying in Australia? We have a page on our website called Kids Exposed where parents share their stories. My 9-year-old daughter was groomed in the chat room on her favorite computer game. I called the police and asked them if they publish on their webpage a list of games that predators were known to frequent. The police responded with, no, predators are on all the games. My daughter was sent dick pics. She's in primary school. My 11-year-old daughter was contacted by a man through Instagram, threatening to hurt her and her family if she didn't send nude pictures. My 9-year-old daughter was looking at animal pictures on my laptop. One picture was of a kitten. When she clicked on the picture to enlarge it, porn came up. Thankfully, I was sitting next to her. She practically threw the laptop at me in horror. How disgusting that there are adults on the web deliberately linking porn to animal pictures to target children. My children were exposed to porn on the school bus by children accessing it regularly. My youngest was in prep at the time. My niece has been exposed to porn by classmates in primary school via mobile phones that children snuck into class. She was left feeling gross and uncomfortable and wishes she could unsee what she never wanted to look at. Year 3, 9 years old, my daughter's classmate, a boy, hacked into her Google account and went into her drive to delete her schoolwork, and in its place posted a very graphic, violent, pornographic image of a man and a woman having sex. This story is particularly compelling because it is from a mother who's also a former police detective, and she says, even with all my experience, all my knowledge, all my protective measures, and the amazing relationship I have with my daughter, I was still unable to stop her from being exposed to pornography at too young an age. My 11-year-old daughter Googled, what shall I get my father for Father's Day? She was drawn into a vortex of porn and showed her 9-year-old sister. We found out 3 months later. In eSafety's Roadmap for Age Verification, they cited research that found that more than 3 in 4 Australian adults support government implementation of age assurance for online pornography, but we still do not have it. What do young people tell us? Well, boys tell us they're shown porn images and videos at school, on the school bus, at friends' houses, at the sporting event. Porn is now being airdropped by boys on the bus to other children on the bus. They're preyed on by bots and predators on Snapchat and TikTok. The eSafety Commission has reported 1,000 reports in 2023 alone, all involving boys. Sextortion. We just had a tragic case recently of a boy who took his life after paying thousands of dollars. It was a Nigerian scam operating out of a slum, and he thought he was talking to a young woman, and he took his life. Increasing numbers of young boys reporting habitual and compulsive porn use, and more boys reporting erectile dysfunction problems. What do girls tell us? Well, I address thousands of girls in schools, and the stories are getting worse, younger. The stories I heard last year were the worst I've ever heard in over a decade of speaking in schools. They tell me they're sexually harassed at school or on the school bus. They're ranked at school on their bodies compared to the bodies of porn stars. They're touched, they're groped, they're threatened with rape if they don't send nudes. Girls are now telling me that boys threaten to rape their mothers and their sisters if they don't send nudes. Girls being told their mothers are MILFs. If you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. It's just too early in the morning over there for you. Being asked for sex acts by boys at school, being subject to groaning and moaning noises every day, being called names if they speak up or complain. Last year, I had 12-year-old girls telling me that boys would come up to them and say, I'm going to take you to my sex dungeon. Young women of color in year 7, first year of high school here, telling me that boys would say, you're my dirty little sex slave. These are all genres of porn. This is not normal behavior for boys. It is socialized, it is taught, learned behavior. The groaning and moaning phenomenon is huge here. where boys are making groaning, grunting, moaning noises at girls. Girls tell me they are subjected to this at school every day, on the school bus, at the school camp, at the weekend party. They tell me that even their little brothers make the noises at them at home because they've heard older boys making these noises. I have young girls in primary school telling me they do not feel safe at school. They're subjected to these daily sexual intrusions. They can't just go to school and learn and socialize with their friend. They're always hyper vigilant about these behaviors, which are worsening by the day. So that brings us to our attempts to do something about this in Australia. And we thought we were getting somewhere under the previous government, but then there was an election, and we're dealing with a new government now who has resisted all the efforts to implement age verification in Australia, not even a trial. I don't know about you over there, but we feel like we're always writing submissions. I've been writing submissions for years. These are just some of them. So as well as the activism and the campaigning, we write high-level submissions, and we present to government, we present to inquiries, state and federal inquiries. And of course, the most recent inquiry was this one, Protecting the Age of Innocence, report of the inquiry into age verification for online wagering and online pornography. This was the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Social Policy and Legal Affairs, February 2020. At last, we thought we'd gotten somewhere. This report made recommendations that we supported. It cited our work, our evidence. The bipartisan, so cross-party committee, recommended adoption of an age verification system as one obstacle in the way of children being able to access porn. It concluded that age verification can create a significant barrier to prevent young people, and particularly young children, from exposure to harmful content online. The committee's recommendations therefore seek to support the implementation of online age verification in Australia. The committee recommended that the eSafety Commissioner lead the development of a roadmap for implementation of a mandatory system as part of a broader approach. Now, the previous coalition government accepted this recommendation, and eSafety provided its report in March. This is the report recommending mandatory age assurance mechanism. Now, the federal government rejected eSafety's age verification recommendation in August of last year, and you can imagine this was a huge blow to us here, particularly those of us that had worked towards this for many, many years. The government claimed that the technology was underdeveloped. We were very grateful for the support of many of you attending your conference right now. This was a powerful response from age verification providers, that the government's response was, quote, a political, not a technical decision, a political decision. And we quoted SafeShare and NVOC and Yoti and FaceTech in a blog on our website. And we are very grateful for your support in countering the spin of the government in rejecting its own eSafety Commission's recommendation for age verification. In September of last year, Collective Shout spearheaded an initiative. This initiative was an open letter to the government from almost 50 leading women's safety and child protection advocates in this country, the biggest names in this country, including Robert Fitzgerald, who led the Royal Commission here into institutional responses to child abuse. Very well recognized names here: Grace Tame, Jess Hill, Chanel Contos, Michael Carr-Gregg, Susan McLean, Michael Flood, Michael Salter, and too many more to name. It cited the Age of Innocence report, the recommendation for age verification, and said this: your government stated it would not implement an age verification system, preferring industry self-regulation. It deferred to the development of industry codes, which are likely years away from finalization. In the meantime, millions more children will be exposed to pornography, which frequently depicts and eroticizes extreme violence against women. It is our strong view that government has allowed itself to be swayed by industry resistance to an age verification system. Vested interests should not have been put before the well-being of children. The government's initiatives regarding respectful relationships and consent education, while welcome, cannot compete with the world's largest department of education, the global pornography industry. In its response to eSafety's roadmaps report, the government concluded the first duty of any government is to protect its citizens from harm. Actioning eSafety's recommendation regarding a pilot program would demonstrate that your government is sincere in its stated concerns about the protection and safeguarding of our most vulnerable citizens. As well as that open letter, which got significant media attention, we're out on Twitter. We're running our campaigns using every lever that we possibly can. We called on our supporters to contact the Minister for Communications, Michelle Rowland, to contact the Prime Minister. You can find all the information about our campaign on our website. We're continuing the pressure. We're on national television. I was on Sky News saying we don't understand why the federal government has put the vested interests of a global predatory porn industry before the well-being and safety of children. We welcome the coalition's announcement that it would support a pilot program if elected. Our next election is next year. I appeared at a press conference with the leader of the opposition, Peter Dutton, and the Shadow Communications Minister, David Coleman. And David Coleman then went on to introduce a private members bill to try to force the government to adopt a trial. The bill was not successful, but we did get the support of the independents, which aren't known for voting with the coalition, and we certainly welcome the support of those independents. Unfortunately, the Greens sided with the government, and that private members bill did not get up. Now, we noted that Michelle Rowland, our communications minister, said on March the 27th on the ABC, keeping Australians safe online is obviously the first priority of government, and particularly in terms of young people in their vulnerabilities. So we are going to hold the minister to account for what she has said there. There is no legitimate reason not to run a pilot, run a trial here in Australia. And obviously we watch very closely what's happening there in the UK and in other countries that are rolling out age verification systems. And what are our next steps here in Australia? Well, we're going to be publishing a major report, hopefully in May, which is a survey about sexual harassment in schools around the country. The data, the early data that I've seen is very compelling, and even female teachers now are leaving the profession because of the levels of porn-inspired sexual harassment that they are subjected to every day. We're going to increase the pressure on the federal government. We continue to collate stories from parents and young people. We're collaborating with global stakeholders like yourselves, and we are going to turn the issue of age verification into an election issue in 2025. If you'd like to follow us, that QR code there will take you to our website, to our social media pages. We thank you again for this opportunity. We value your support. We value you as our global allies and partners, and we will keep going until we achieve this outcome in the best interest of our children here in Australia. Thank you very much.